My ex dumped their kids on me for 18 years. Payback time. The text message came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, from a number I hadn't seen in 18 years but somehow still recognized. Hey, I know it's been a while. Can we talk about Emma and Jake? I stared at my phone screen in the darkness of my bedroom, my heart hammering against my ribs. After all this time, now Sarah wanted to talk about Emma and Jake. Not when Jake was 3 and crying himself to sleep asking where mommy went. Not when Emma was 5 and drew pictures of our family with only 2 stick figures. Not during the countless parent-teacher conferences, emergency room visits, or sleepless nights when I wondered how the hell I was going to make ends meet on a single income while raising 2 kids who weren't even biologically mine. I set the phone down without responding and tried to go back to sleep, but my mind was racing. 18 years. 18 years since Sarah packed her bags and moved in with her coworker Marcus, leaving behind her 2 toddlers and a person stupid enough to love them all unconditionally. Me. We'd only been together for 2 years when she got pregnant with Emma. I was 25, working construction, and head over heels in love with this woman and her vision of the family we'd build together. When Jake came along 16 months later, I proposed. We had this whole life planned out, the house with the white picket fence, family vacations, growing old together watching our grandkids play in the same backyard where we'd pushed Emma and Jake on their swing set. But Sarah had different plans. Plans that apparently included Marcus from accounting and a fresh start without the baggage of 2 small children cramping her style. She left on a Thursday morning in March, while the kids were at daycare. Packed everything she could fit in her Honda Civic and left a note on the kitchen counter that I've never let Emma or Jake see. Asterisk, I'm not ready for this. Take care of them. Don't contact me. Asterisk. That was it. 24 words to end everything and abandon the 2 most important people in my life. The kids I'd been raising as my own since they were babies, who called me dad, who I'd legally adopted just 6 months before she left. The first few months were brutal. Jake developed separation anxiety and wouldn't let me leave his sight. Emma started having nightmares. I was working 60-hour weeks to cover the mortgage and childcare costs that had suddenly doubled without Sarah's income. I called her family, her friends, anyone who might know where she was. Her mother hung up on me. Her sister said Sarah needed space to figure things out. Space. 18 years of space, while I figured out how to braid Emma's hair for picture day, taught Jake to drive stick shift in the parking lot behind Denny's, and worked double shifts to pay for college applications I never thought we'd be able to afford. But we made it work. More than that, we thrived. Emma just finished her sophomore year at Berkeley, studying environmental science. Jake's 20 now, working as a paramedic and saving up to buy his own place. They're incredible kids, kind, hardworking, resilient. Everything Sarah will never know about them because she chose to miss it all. And now, after 2 decades of silence, she wants to talk. My phone buzzed again. Another message. I heard Emma's in college now. And Jake's doing well too. I'd really like to see them. I almost laughed. She'd like to see them. After missing every birthday, every Christmas morning, every graduation, every milestone that mattered. Well, Sarah was about to get exactly what she'd asked for. It was time we talked. I waited until morning to respond, after I'd dropped Jake off at the fire station and had the house to myself. My hands were steadier with coffee in my system and 18 years of rage properly contained behind a carefully neutral tone. We can talk. Saturday 10 a.m. Riverside Park, Main Pavilion. Her response came within minutes, thank you. I've missed them so much. Missed them. The audacity of that statement sat in my chest like a stone. You can't miss someone you actively chose to abandon. You can feel guilty about them, sure. You can regret your choices. But missing requires having cared enough to stay in the first place. I spent the next 3 days doing research. Not the kind where I stalked her social media, I blocked all of that years ago for my own sanity. Real research. The kind that comes with filing fees and legal letterhead. Turns out Sarah Martinez, she kept Marcus's last name even after their divorce, had done quite well for herself. Senior marketing director at a tech firm in Portland. Nice house in the suburbs, I found the property records. 2 car payments on vehicles worth more than I made in 6 months. A lifestyle funded by 18 years of not paying a single cent in child support. The lawyer I consulted, Rebecca Chen, was a shark in a tasteful pantsuit who'd handled my neighbor's custody battle the year before. When I laid out the situation in her downtown office, her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. 18 years of back support, no established custody agreement, complete abandonment, she said, making notes on her legal pad. This is going to be expensive for her. Very expensive. How expensive? Rebecca pulled out her calculator. Conservatively. Based on Oregon's child support guidelines and her current income, we're looking at roughly $2,800 per month for 2 children. Times 12 months. Times 18 years. The number she showed me made my vision blur, $604,800. Over $500,000. Plus interest, penalties for non-payment, and potentially punitive damages given the circumstances. We could be looking at close to $1 million when all's said and done. $1 million. The money that could have paid for Emma's entire college education instead of the student loans she'd graduate with. The money that could have fixed the roof after the storm in 2018, or replaced my truck when the transmission died, or covered Jake's EMT training without him having to work nights at the warehouse. But it wasn't really about the money. It was about accountability. About consequences. About the fact that Sarah got to walk away and reinvent herself while I stayed up nights calculating whether we could afford both groceries and the electric bill. There's something else, Rebecca continued. If she's suddenly reaching out after all this time, there's usually a reason. People don't just develop parental instincts at random after 2 decades. She was right, and I knew it. The timing felt too convenient. Sarah's divorce had been finalized 4 months ago, I'd done enough digging to find that much. Suddenly she wanted back into the lives of 2 successful young adults she'd never bothered to know. My phone rang Thursday evening while I was helping Emma move boxes up to her apartment for summer break. She was subletting a place near campus, working a research internship that paid better than my first construction job. Unknown number, I told Emma, but something in my gut said to answer it. This is David. David, it's Sarah. Her voice was exactly the same, like a ghost stepping out of a photograph. I was hoping we could talk before Saturday. About what I'm going to say to them. No, I said. Saturday. 10 a.m. Don't be late. I hung up and found Emma staring at me with those sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Dad? Everything okay? Time to start telling the truth. Actually, there's something we need to discuss. I told Emma everything that night. We sat on the floor of her new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and takeout containers, while I explained why a woman she couldn't even remember suddenly wanted back into her life. Emma listened without interrupting, her expression cycling through confusion, anger, and something that looked like relief. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, picking at the label on her water bottle. I always wondered if I'd done something wrong, she said finally. When I was little, I used to think maybe I was too loud, or I broke something important, and that's why she left. My heart cracked. No. You were perfect. You both were. This was never about you kids. I want to meet her, Emma said, and my stomach dropped. Not because I want a relationship. I need to see her. To understand. I called Jake that night and told him everything too. His reaction was different, colder, more clinical. Maybe it was the paramedic training, or maybe it was just Jake's way of processing. So she wants something, he said. People don't come back after 18 years just to say hi. That's what I'm thinking. You filing the support claim? Already started. Jake was quiet for a minute. Good. She owes you more than money, but it's a start. Friday afternoon, Rebecca called with news that made my blood run cold. I found out why she's back, Rebecca said. Sarah's mother died 3 weeks ago. Left a substantial estate, house, investments, the works. But here's the interesting part, the will specifically mentions Emma and Jake. They're named as beneficiaries. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. She needs them to claim the inheritance. Most likely. Grandmother's estate probably requires the biological mother to facilitate contact with the grandchildren, or there might be conditions about family reconciliation. I'm still digging into the probate records. So that was it. Sarah wasn't back because she'd suddenly developed maternal instincts or because she'd been pining away for the children she abandoned. She was back because Emma and Jake were worth something to her now. I spent Friday night staring at the ceiling, thinking about Sarah's mother, Dorothy. She'd been kind to me in those early days, before Sarah left. Had even babysat Emma and Jake a few times. After Sarah disappeared, Dorothy stopped returning my calls. I'd assumed she was just protecting her daughter, but maybe there was more to it. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzling, typical Pacific Northwest weather that matched my mood. I got to Riverside Park 20 minutes early and claimed a picnic table with a clear view of the parking lot. At exactly 10 a.m., a silver BMW pulled up, and Sarah stepped out. 18 years had been kind to her. Designer jeans, expensive-looking jacket, hair styled in that effortless way that costs a fortune to maintain. She looked like success, like someone who'd never spent a night calculating whether she could afford both rent and groceries. She walked toward me with hesitant steps, and I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, no lingering attraction. Just cold, clinical assessment of the person who'd walked away from everything that mattered. David, she said, stopping a few feet from the table. You look good. Sit down, Sarah. She sat across from me, folding her hands on the weathered wood. Up close, I could see the lines around her eyes, the careful makeup covering what looked like sleepless nights. I know you have questions, she began. Just one, I said. How much are Emma and Jake worth to you? Her face went pale, confirming everything Rebecca had discovered. I don't know what you mean. Your mother's will. The inheritance. How much do you get if you reconnect with the kids you abandoned? Sarah's carefully constructed composure crumbled. We both knew why she was really here. Sarah's hands trembled as she reached into her purse, pulling out a folder thick with legal documents. She set it on the table between us like a peace offering, but I didn't touch it. It's not what you think, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Mom left them each $150,000. But there are conditions. I waited, letting the silence stretch until she was forced to continue. They have to meet with me. Supervised visits for 6 months, family counseling sessions, the whole thing. Mom's lawyer said she wanted to make sure I'd changed. That I was ready to be in their lives again. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Even from the grave, she's trying to fix my mistakes. And what do you get out of it? Sarah's composure cracked further. The house. Her investment accounts. About $1.2 million total, but only if I complete the reconciliation process successfully. If Emma and Jake refuse to participate, or if the family therapist determines I'm not genuinely committed. She shrugged. Everything goes to the animal shelter. I almost smiled. Dorothy had been smarter than I'd given her credit for. She'd found a way to provide for her grandchildren while forcing Sarah to face what she'd done. But she'd also put Emma and Jake in an impossible position. There's more, Sarah continued, her voice getting smaller. The will, it has details. About how Mom tried to stay in touch with them after I left. She sent birthday cards, Christmas presents. She swallowed hard. I returned everything. Told her to stop interfering in my new life. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Dorothy had tried to maintain a relationship with Emma and Jake, and Sarah had cut her off too. I thought about all the times Emma had asked about her grandmother, the stories I told her about the woman who'd bounced her on her knee as a baby. Dorothy had wanted to be part of their lives, but Sarah had stolen that from all of us. You kept them from their grandmother, I said, and it wasn't a question. I was scared, Sarah whispered. If Mom stayed in touch, she'd tell them things about me. About why I really left. I couldn't risk that. Why did you really leave, Sarah? Because I've been telling myself it was about Marcus, about you not being ready for responsibility. But that's not it, is it? Sarah was crying now, tears streaming down her face, destroying whatever expensive makeup routine she'd applied that morning. I was using, she said so quietly I almost didn't hear her. Pills first, then other things. Marcus wasn't my coworker, he was my dealer. I chose drugs over my children, David. I chose getting high over watching them grow up. Everything shifted. 18 years of anger and confusion suddenly had a different shape. I thought about all the times near the end when Sarah had been distant, distracted. The money that went missing from my wallet. The strange phone calls at odd hours. The signs I'd been too in love to see clearly. Are you clean now? 8 years, she said. But it took 10 years to get there. 10 years of relapses and rehab and burning every bridge I had left. When I finally got sober, really sober, I wanted to reach out. But what was I supposed to say? Sorry I chose heroin over you. How do you apologize for that? I stared at her across the table, this broken woman who destroyed so many lives in service of her addiction. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but I couldn't get past the image of Jake crying himself to sleep, or Emma drawing pictures of the family Sarah had abandoned. The kids know about the inheritance, I said finally. They're meeting with Dorothy's lawyer Monday morning. With me. Sarah's eyes widened. You told them? I told them their grandmother left them money. I didn't tell them about the strings attached. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Sarah. Emma and Jake are going to make their own choices about whether they want you in their lives. Not because of money, not because of some manipulation from beyond the grave, but because they're adults who deserve to know the truth. And if they say no? I stood up, leaving the folder of documents untouched on the table. Then you'll finally understand what it feels like to lose them. Sarah called after me as I walked away, but I didn't turn around. I had bigger problems to worry about now. Like how to tell Emma and Jake that their grandmother had tried to buy them a mother who'd sold them for drugs 18 years ago. The meeting with Dorothy's lawyer was scheduled for 2 p.m. Monday at his downtown office. I spent Sunday night going over everything in my head, trying to figure out how to explain to Emma and Jake that their inheritance came with emotional strings attached. Emma arrived at my house Monday morning looking determined but tired. She'd clearly been losing sleep over this whole situation. Jake showed up 20 minutes later in his EMT uniform, having pulled a double shift that ended at 8 a.m. So what's the real story, Dad? Jake asked, settling into the kitchen chair he'd claimed as his own since he was 12. Because I've been thinking about it, and something doesn't add up. Why now? Why after all this time? I made coffee and told them about Dorothy's will. About the conditions, the supervised visits, the family therapy requirements. About how their grandmother had tried to stay connected and Sarah had cut her off completely. I watched their faces process each revelation, saw the hurt and anger war with something that might have been hope. So she's only back because Grandma Dorothy made her come back, Emma said quietly. If there was no money involved, she'd still be gone. That's what it looks like. Jake was silent for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. How much did you say? Each of us. $150,000. Plus whatever your grandmother wanted you to have that Sarah kept from you all these years. And if we refuse to play along with this reconciliation bullshit? The money goes to charity. Sarah gets nothing either. Emma looked up sharply. How much does Sarah stand to inherit? About $1.2 million. Jesus. Jake shook his head. So we're not just talking about our inheritance. We're talking about whether we're willing to cost her over $1 million. That was exactly the position Dorothy had put them in, and I could see the weight of it settling on both kids. They weren't just deciding whether to forgive their mother, they were deciding whether to financially destroy her in the process. We drove to the lawyer's office in relative silence. Harold Morrison was exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd been practicing estate law for 40 years, gray suit, mahogany desk, and a kind of calm authority that came from delivering both good and terrible news with equal professionalism. Before we discussed the specifics, Morrison said after we'd settled into the leather chairs facing his desk, I want you to understand that your grandmother spent considerable time crafting these provisions. She came to see me 6 times over the past 2 years, revising and refining the language. This wasn't a decision she made lightly. He opened a thick folder and pulled out several documents. Emma, Jake, your grandmother established separate trusts for each of you. The $150,000 is just the beginning. There are additional funds that become available at age 25, 30, and 35. The total value of your combined inheritance is approximately $800,000. My stomach dropped. Dorothy had left Emma and Jake nearly $1 million, but made it contingent on reconnecting with the woman who'd abandoned them. The manipulation was breathtaking in its scope. However, Morrison continued, there's something else. Your grandmother also left detailed letters for each of you. She insisted I give you these before explaining the conditions any further. He handed Emma and Jake each a sealed envelope with their names written in Dorothy's careful handwriting. They looked at me, and I nodded. Whatever Dorothy had to say, they needed to hear it. Emma opened hers first, her eyes moving quickly across the pages. Jake read more slowly, his expression growing darker with each paragraph. When they finished, they sat in stunned silence. What did she say? I asked. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. She knew. About the addiction, about why Sarah really left. She's known the whole time. Jake looked up from his letter, his face pale. She says Sarah came to her right after she left. Begging for money, claiming she was getting clean, promising she'd come back for us once she got her life together. Grandma Dorothy gave her money. Emma asked, her voice tight with anger. $20,000, Jake continued reading. With the condition that Sarah would complete a 90-day treatment program and then come back for us. Sarah took the money and disappeared for 3 years. My chest felt tight. Dorothy had been trying to help Sarah get clean so she could return to her children, and Sarah had stolen from her own mother instead. The betrayal ran even deeper than I'd imagined. There's more, Emma said, her hands shaking as she held the letter. Grandma Dorothy hired a private investigator to keep track of us. She knew about my science fair wins in middle school, Jake's baseball trophies, my acceptance to Berkeley. She knew everything because she was watching from a distance, respecting your decision to raise us without interference. The revelation hit me like a truck. Dorothy had been silently witnessing their entire childhood, proud but unable to participate because Sarah had poisoned that well. All those years I thought the kids had no extended family who cared about them. Dorothy had been there, loving them from afar. Morrison cleared his throat. Your grandmother wanted you to know that the conditions in her will aren't about forcing reconciliation. They're about giving your mother one final chance to prove she's changed, while ensuring you receive what's rightfully yours regardless of the outcome. What do you mean, regardless of the outcome? I asked. The money is yours, Morrison said to Emma and Jake. No matter what happens with Sarah. The supervised visits and family therapy are requirements for Sarah to claim her portion of the inheritance, not yours. If you participate in good faith for 6 months, the trusts become active whether you choose to maintain a relationship with your mother or not. Emma and Jake exchanged glances. So we could go through the motions, collect our inheritance, and then tell her to get lost? Jake asked. Technically, yes. Though your grandmother hoped you'd approach it with genuine openness to healing, should your mother prove herself worthy of it. And if we refuse to participate at all? Emma asked. Morrison consulted his notes. Then your funds are held in trust until you turn 30, at which point they transfer to you unconditionally. Sarah's inheritance goes to the Oregon Humane Society immediately. She loses $1.2 million if we walk away, Jake said. It wasn't a question. Correct. I watched Emma and Jake process this information. They weren't just deciding about their own relationship with Sarah, they were holding her entire financial future in their hands. Dorothy had crafted a situation where Sarah's redemption literally depended on earning her children's forgiveness. We need time to think about this, Emma said finally. Of course. You have 30 days to make your decision. After that, if you haven't committed to the reconciliation process, Sarah's inheritance is forfeit. As we left Morrison's office, Jake pulled me aside. Dad, there's something else in the letter you need to know. Grandma Dorothy says she tried to contact you directly several times over the years, but Sarah told her you'd moved and changed your name. Sarah intercepted every attempt at contact. Another lie. Another layer of manipulation that had kept the kids from knowing their grandmother. I felt 18 years of carefully controlled anger threatening to boil over. She also left something for you, Emma said quietly, handing me a smaller sealed envelope. Mr. Morrison said to give this to you after we left. I stared at Dorothy's final message, addressed simply to David, the father they deserved. Whatever was inside that envelope, I knew it was going to change everything. I waited until I got home to open Dorothy's letter, my hands shaking as I tore the seal. Emma and Jake had gone to Emma's apartment to discuss everything, leaving me alone with 18 years of questions that were finally about to get answers. The letter was dated just 3 months ago, written in Dorothy's increasingly frail handwriting. David. Asterisk if you're reading this, then my granddaughter and grandson are finally learning the truth about their mother and about me. I owe you an apology that's 18 years overdue, asterisk. Asterisk I knew what kind of man you were from the moment Sarah brought you home. You loved those babies like they were your own blood, and when Sarah abandoned them, you didn't hesitate to become everything they needed. I watched you sacrifice your 20s and 30s to give them stability, love, and opportunity, asterisk. What you don't know is that I've been helping financially all along. My blood went cold. I read the sentence 3 times before it sank in. Asterisk the anonymous scholarship that covered Emma's SAT prep courses. That was me. Jake's EMT training program that mysteriously had an extra scholarship available. Also me. The property tax reassessment that lowered your mortgage payments in 2019. I know the right people, asterisk. Asterisk I estimate I've contributed roughly $47,000 to their upbringing over the years, always through channels that couldn't be traced back to me. I wanted to do more, but Sarah threatened legal action if I had direct contact. She said she'd disappear with the children if I interfered, asterisk. Asterisk I hired the private investigator not just to watch Emma and Jake, but to watch you too. To make sure you were the father I hoped you'd be. You exceeded every expectation, asterisk. Asterisk there's $500,000 set aside in a separate trust for you, David. It transfers regardless of what Emma and Jake decide about Sarah. It's not payment, you can't put a price on what you've given those children. It's recognition. You earned every penny through 18 years of being the parent Sarah refused to become, asterisk. Asterisk the trust documents are with Harold Morrison. He has instructions to transfer the funds within 48 hours of giving you this letter, asterisk. Thank you for loving them when their mother couldn't love herself. Dorothy. I set the letter down with trembling hands and immediately called Morrison's office. Mr. Morrison. This is David Chin. I need to ask you about Dorothy's letter. Ah yes, I've been expecting your call. The trust transfer is already in process. You should see the funds in your account by Wednesday morning. $500,000. After 18 years of stretching every paycheck, of working double shifts to afford school clothes and emergency room visits, of choosing between fixing the car or fixing the roof. Dorothy had been quietly helping all along, and now she was giving me enough money to retire comfortably or help Emma and Jake start their adult lives debt-free. But that wasn't the biggest shock. Tuesday afternoon, Rebecca Chin called with news that made Dorothy's generosity seem simple by comparison. David, we have a problem. I've been digging deeper into Sarah's finances for the child support case, and I found something interesting. She's been receiving monthly payments from a trust account for the past 8 years. What kind of trust account? One set up by Dorothy Martinez. $3,200 a month, with the stipulation that Sarah maintains sobriety and complete regular drug testing. If she failed a test or missed a payment period, the money stopped. The implications hit me like a freight train. Dorothy was supporting Sarah financially while she got clean. It gets worse. The payments were specifically designated as child support substitute in the trust documents. Dorothy was essentially paying Sarah's child support obligation for her, with the understanding that Sarah would eventually take over the payments herself. But Sarah never did. Never. She's been collecting Dorothy's money for 8 years while you struggled to raise her children. And here's the really infuriating part. The trust documents include a provision that if Sarah ever established a relationship with Emma and Jake, she'd be required to repay every cent to Dorothy's estate. How much money are we talking about? Rebecca's calculator clicked in the background. $307,200. Plus the original $20,000 Dorothy gave her to get clean that she never paid back. Sarah owes Dorothy's estate over $320,000, and that debt transfers to Emma and Jake's inheritance if Sarah claims it. The web of financial manipulation was staggering. Dorothy had been playing a long game, supporting Sarah's recovery while simultaneously protecting the grandchildren Sarah had abandoned. Every dollar Sarah had received came with strings attached, and now those strings were tightening into a noose. There's one more thing, Rebecca continued. I found the real reason Sarah's divorce from Marcus was so expensive. He was embezzling money from their joint accounts to buy prescription drugs. Sarah knew about it and helped him cover it up for years. When their company found out, Marcus got fired and Sarah nearly faced charges as an accessory. Is she still using? Unknown, but her recent financial records suggest someone with serious money problems. The BMW is leased, her house has 2 mortgages, and she's carrying about $80,000 in credit card debt. Dorothy's inheritance isn't just about reconnecting with her children, it's probably the only thing standing between Sarah and bankruptcy. I hung up and stared out my kitchen window at the swing set I built for Emma and Jake 15 years ago. The swings moved gently in the afternoon breeze, empty now that the children who'd used them were adults making impossible decisions about their mother's future. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Dad, we've decided. We're going to meet with her tomorrow. Can you be there? Before I could respond, another text followed. We're not doing this for her or for the money. We're doing it for Grandma Dorothy. And for closure. I typed back, I'll be there. But first, I had some truth-telling of my own to do. Sarah was about to learn that her mother's final gift came with a much higher price tag than she'd imagined. The meeting was set for Thursday afternoon at a neutral location, a family counseling center downtown that specialized in reunification cases. Emma had insisted on having a professional mediator present, and honestly, I was grateful. The last thing any of us needed was this conversation happening without witnesses. I arrived early and found Sarah already there, sitting in the parking lot in her BMW with the engine running. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in the week since our park encounter. When she saw my truck, she got out and approached my window. David, I need to tell you something before they get here, she said, her voice tight with anxiety. Marcus contacted me yesterday. He's threatening to tell Emma and Jake things about our marriage. About what really happened during those last few months before I left. What kind of things? Sarah's hands were shaking. He knows about some of the financial stuff. About money I borrowed from your account back then to pay for things. He wants $50,000 to keep quiet, or he says he'll reach out to the kids directly. The hits just kept coming. You stole from me. Borrowed, she said weakly. I was going to pay it back once I got clean. But then everything fell apart, and I couldn't. She trailed off, probably realizing how pathetic she sounded. How much, Sarah? $8,000 over 6 months. I know it doesn't sound like much now, but $8,000. I laughed bitterly. Do you have any idea what $8,000 meant to us back then? That was 3 months of daycare. That was Emma's surgery when she broke her arm. I remembered that time vividly, checking the account balance and finding it lower than expected, but attributing it to my own poor money management during the chaos of Sarah's increasingly erratic behavior. I picked up extra weekend shifts to compensate, missing time with the kids to earn back money Sarah had stolen to fund her habits. I'm going to pay Marcus, she continued desperately. I just need to make sure the kids never find out about any of this. Please, David. They can't know how bad things really were. Before I could respond, Emma's car pulled into the parking lot, followed immediately by Jake's truck. They got out together, Emma looking nervous but determined, Jake wearing the stone-faced expression he'd perfected during his EMT training. They were adults now, capable of handling the truth, but some part of me still wanted to protect them from the full scope of their mother's failures. We'll see what they ask, I told Sarah. But I'm done lying to them to protect you. The counseling center was decorated in soothing pastels that did nothing to ease the tension crackling between the 4 of us as we settled into a circle of chairs. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, the family therapist Dorothy's will had mandated, was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a sort of calm presence that probably came from mediating these sorts of disasters regularly. Before we begin, Dr. Hendricks said, I want to establish some ground rules. This is a safe space for everyone to express their feelings honestly. Sarah, Emma, and Jake have some questions for you, and I'd like you to answer them as truthfully as possible. Emma spoke first, her voice steady but cold. I want to know about the money. Dad told us about Grandma Dorothy's will, but Jake and I did some research on our own. We found records of payments from a trust account. You've been receiving money that was supposed to be for our support, haven't you? Sarah's face went white. She glanced at me, then at Dr. Hendricks, clearly hoping someone would rescue her from having to answer. When no help came, she nodded reluctantly. Your grandmother was helping me get back on my feet so I could eventually. She stopped, realizing how hollow that sounded after 8 years of taking money while maintaining zero contact with her children. Jake leaned forward in his chair. $3,000 a month for 8 years. That's almost $300,000. Money that could have paid for Dad's medical bills when he had that heart episode in 2019. Money that could have meant Emma didn't have to work 3 jobs to afford college. The heart episode. I tried to keep that from them, but Jake had been 18 and training as an EMT. He'd seen the bills, knew how close we'd come to losing the house when I couldn't work construction for 4 months. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I was struggling to recover from stress-induced cardiac problems caused by 18 years of single parenting, Sarah was collecting monthly payments that could have solved every financial worry we had. I was going to reach out, Sarah said weakly. Once I was stable enough to be a real mother to you both. The money was supposed to help me get to that point. Bullshit, Emma said, her composure finally cracking. You were 20 minutes away for 8 years. You could have sent a birthday card. You could have asked Dad how we were doing. You could have done literally anything to show you cared, but you didn't. Sarah started crying then, but they weren't the manipulative tears I'd seen from her in the past. These looked like genuine grief, like she was finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd lost. "You're right," she whispered. "I was a coward. I told myself I was waiting until I could be perfect for you, but really I was just scared you'd reject me. So I stayed away and let David do all the hard work while I pretended I was being noble." The admission hung in the air like a confession. For the first time in 18 years, Sarah had told the complete truth about her motivations. But the truth, as I was about to learn, was even more complicated than any of us had imagined. Dr. Hendricks made a note on her pad and looked directly at Sarah. "I think there's more you need to tell them. About why you really can't afford to lose this inheritance." Sarah's eyes went wide with panic. "I don't know what you mean." "Sarah," Dr. Hendricks said gently but firmly, "part of the reconciliation process your mother outlined requires complete financial transparency. I've reviewed all the documentation Mr. Morrison provided. Your children deserve to know exactly what's at stake here." Jake crossed his arms. "What's she talking about?" Dr. Hendricks consulted her notes. "Your mother currently owes approximately $127,000 to various creditors. Her house is in pre-foreclosure. Without your grandmother's inheritance, she'll likely file for bankruptcy within 60 days. The room went dead silent. Emma stared at Sarah with something between disgust and pity. "So this isn't about wanting us back. This is about financial survival." "It's both," Sarah said desperately. "Yes, I need the money, but that doesn't mean I don't want a relationship with you. I've thought about you both every single day." "Have you?" Jake interrupted. "Because Dad's birthday is next month. He'll be 46. "When's my birthday, Sarah?" Sarah's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. She didn't know. After 20 years of life, she didn't know when her own son was born. "October 15th, Jake said flatly. "I'll be 21. Emma's birthday is June 3rd. She just turned 19. Dad's is August 27th. These are basic facts about the people you claim to love." I watched Sarah crumble as she realized she couldn't even pass the most elementary test of parenthood. But Jake wasn't finished. "Here's what I really want to know," he continued, his voice taking on the professional tone he used with patience. "Dad's been paying for everything for 18 years. Food, clothes, school, medical bills, car insurance, college applications, Emma's dorm room, my EMT training. Everything. While you collected $3,000 a month from Grandma Dorothy and lived your comfortable life in Portland." Emma picked up where Jake left off. "So here's our counteroffer. You want us to do 6 months of family therapy so you can inherit $1.2 million. Fine. But you're going to pay Dad back first." "Pay him back?" Sarah looked confused. I felt a surge of pride watching my kids, and they were my kids, in every way that mattered, take control of the situation. Emma pulled out her phone and opened her calculator app. "We did the math," Emma said. 18 years of child support at Oregon's current guidelines comes to about $600,000. Plus interest. Plus the $8,000 you stole from Dad's account back then. Plus damages for emotional distress. Jake nodded. "We figure Dad is owed roughly $850,000. You inherit $1.2 million from Grandma Dorothy, you pay Dad $850,000, and you keep what's left. That's your reconciliation payment." Sarah's face went ashen. "That would leave me with almost nothing after taxes and legal fees." "Welcome to how Dad lived for 18 years, Emma said coldly. "Except he did it while actually raising us." Dr. Hendricks was frantically taking notes, clearly not expecting the session to take this turn. "This is quite an unusual approach to family reconciliation." "Nothing about our family has ever been usual," Jake said. "Sarah abandoned us when I was 2 and Emma was 3. Dad could have put us in foster care, could have tracked her down and forced her to take responsibility, could have done a lot of things. Instead, he sacrificed everything to give us a stable home." Emma leaned forward, fixing Sarah with a stare that could have melted steel. "So here's the deal. You want forgiveness. You want a relationship. You start by making things right with the person who actually earned it. 6 months of therapy, full financial restitution to Dad, and maybe, we'll consider having a conversation about what a relationship with you might look like." Sarah sat in stunned silence, probably calculating whether she could survive financially on $300,000 instead of $1.2 million. I wanted to tell Emma and Jake they didn't need to fight my battles, but honestly, watching them stand up for me after years of me protecting them was one of the proudest moments of my life. "And if I refuse?" Sarah asked quietly. Jake shrugged. "Then you get nothing, and we get our inheritance when we turn 30. Either way, we'll be fine. The question is whether you will be." The power dynamic had completely shifted. Sarah wasn't negotiating from a position of strength anymore, she was negotiating for survival, and Emma and Jake held all the cards. Dr. Hendricks called for a 15-minute break, probably sensing that Sarah was on the verge of a complete breakdown. Emma and Jake stepped outside to get some air, leaving me alone with the woman who turned my life upside down 2 decades ago. "This isn't how I imagined this going," Sarah said, staring at her hands folded in her lap. "What did you imagine?" "That you'd show up, give them some sob story about missing them, and they'd welcome you back with open arms while you collected your $1 million payday?" She flinched. I thought. I hoped they might understand that people make mistakes. That I was sick back then, and I'm better now. "You were sick," I agreed. "But you've been better for 8 years, according to Dorothy's trust payments." 8 years, Sarah. Emma was 11 when you got clean. Jake was 10. They were still kids who needed their mother, and you still chose to stay away. Before Sarah could respond, my phone buzzed with a call from Rebecca Chin. I stepped into the hallway to answer. "David, I need to tell you something urgent about Sarah's financial situation," Rebecca said without preamble. "I just got off the phone with a colleague who handles bankruptcy cases. Sarah isn't just broke, she's being investigated for tax evasion." My stomach dropped. "What kind of investigation?" "The IRS has been auditing her for the past 6 months. Apparently, she never reported Dorothy's monthly payments as income. We're talking about $300,000 in unreported income over 8 years, plus penalties and interest. She could be looking at federal charges if they determine it was intentional fraud. How does this affect Emma and Jake? If Sarah inherits Dorothy's money while under federal investigation, there's a chance the entire estate could be frozen during the proceedings. Your kids might not see a penny of their inheritance for years, possibly decades if the case gets tied up in appeals. I closed my eyes and leaned against the wall. Every time I thought I understood the scope of Sarah's failures, another layer revealed itself. Now she wasn't just emotionally and financially irresponsible, she was potentially a federal criminal whose legal problems could destroy Emma and Jake's futures. There's more, Rebecca continued. I tracked down Marcus, her ex-husband. He's not just blackmailing her about their marriage. He's threatening to report the unreported income to accelerate the federal investigation unless she pays him $100,000, not the $50,000 she told you about. Jesus Christ. David, you need to get your kids out of that building right now. Sarah's problems are about to become everyone's problems, and Emma and Jake don't deserve to be collateral damage in whatever's coming next. I hung up and found Emma and Jake sitting on a bench outside the counseling center. They looked up as I approached, and I could see they'd been talking seriously about something. Dad, Emma said, we've been thinking, and we want to change our approach. We don't want her money, Jake added. Any of it. Not if it means dealing with her drama for 6 months. We're both doing fine financially, and honestly, the whole thing feels too much like blackmail. I sat down between them, trying to figure out how to explain that walking away might not be an option anymore. Kids, there's something else we need to discuss. About Sarah's legal situation. Emma's phone rang before I could continue. She glanced at the screen and frowned. Unknown number, but it's local. Answer it, I said, having a terrible feeling about who might be calling. Emma put the phone on speaker. A man's voice came through, smooth and confident in a way that immediately set my teeth on edge. Is this Emma Martinez? This is Marcus Webb. I think it's time we had a conversation about your mother. The blood drained from Emma's face as Marcus's voice filled the air between us. Jake immediately moved closer, his EMT training kicking in as he recognized the signs of shock in his sister. I'm sorry, who is this? Emma managed, though her voice was shaky. Marcus Webb. Your mother's ex-husband. I think Sarah's been less than honest with you about why she suddenly wants back into your lives. His tone was casual, like he was discussing the weather instead of threatening my family. I have some documents I think you'd find very interesting. Bank statements, tax records, some photographs from the early days of Sarah's recovery process. I grabbed the phone from Emma's hand. This is David. Whatever game you're playing ends now. Marcus chuckled, a sound that made my skin crawl. David. The famous father figure. Sarah's told me so much about you over the years. Did you know she used to call you the saint when she was high? Not exactly a compliment, by the way. What do you want? Originally, I wanted $50,000 from Sarah to keep quiet about our marriage. But then I realized I was thinking too small. See, those kids are about to inherit some serious money, and I have information that could make that inheritance very complicated. Information about where Sarah really was during some of those missing years, what she was doing to survive, who she was doing it with. Emma was pale as paper now, and Jake's jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. This was exactly what I'd spent 18 years trying to protect them from, the ugly reality of their mother's choices spilling over into their lives. How much? I asked, cutting to the chase. $200,000. Split between the kids' inheritance and Dorothy's estate. Small price to pay to keep some very ugly secrets buried. And if we refuse? Then Emma and Jake get to learn exactly what kind of woman their mother really was during those lost years. Trust me, the drug addiction is just the tip of the iceberg. Sarah did things to feed her habit that would make you sick, David. Things that involved other people's money, other people's husbands, other people's identities. Jake snatched the phone back. Listen carefully, you piece of shit. I'm an EMT. I've seen every kind of human wreckage you can imagine. Whatever you think is going to shock us about Sarah, I guarantee you I've seen worse on a Tuesday night shift. Have you seen the police reports from Phoenix? Marcus asked smoothly. Sarah spent 14 months there in 2011 and 2012. Want to guess what she was arrested for? The silence stretched out for 30 seconds. None of us wanted to ask, but we all needed to know. Identity theft, Marcus continued when no one responded. She was running credit card scams using information stolen from the rehab clinic where she was supposed to be getting clean. Bilked about 40 families out of their savings before they caught her. The charges were dropped when she agreed to testify against the clinic administrator who was running the operation, but the arrest records are still there. Emma made a sound like she'd been punched in the stomach. Jake's face went completely blank, his emergency response mode. There's more, Marcus said, clearly enjoying himself. The clinic? It was specifically for women with children they'd abandoned. Sarah wasn't just stealing money, she was stealing from other mothers who'd lost their kids to addiction. Real classy operation. I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. Sarah hadn't just abandoned Emma and Jake, she'd spent years victimizing other families going through the same trauma. The scope of her selfishness was breathtaking. You have 48 hours, Marcus said. 200,000, or I start making phone calls to every reporter in Portland who covers family court cases. This story has everything, abandoned kids, $1 million inheritances, federal tax evasion, identity theft. It'll be front page news for weeks. The line went dead. Emma was crying now, not the angry tears from earlier, but the broken sobs of someone whose last illusions had just been shattered. Jake put his arm around her, but I could see his hands shaking with rage. Dad, Emma whispered, we can't let this get out. My professor's at Berkeley, Jake's job with the fire department, if this becomes public. It won't, I said, though I had no idea how to make that promise true. We're going to handle this. But first, we had to go back inside and face Sarah, who was about to learn that her past had finally caught up with all of us. We found Sarah pacing in the hallway outside the counseling office, her phone pressed to her ear. When she saw us approaching, she quickly ended the call and tried to compose herself, but the panic in her eyes was unmistakable. Was that Marcus? I asked without preamble. Sarah's face crumpled. He called you too, didn't he? I'm so sorry, I never wanted. Phoenix, Jake said flatly. Identity theft. Other mothers at the clinic. Sarah sank against the wall like her legs had given out. You don't understand. I was desperate. I hadn't eaten in 3 days, and Marcus said it was just temporary, just until I could get clean and come home to you. Stop. Emma's voice cut through Sarah's excuses like a blade. Just stop talking. Dr. Hendricks appeared in the doorway, clearly sensing the shift in energy. Is everything all right? You've been out here for 20 minutes. We're done, Emma said, turning toward the exit. This whole thing is done. Emma, wait, Sarah called after her. Please, let me explain about Phoenix. I was going to tell you everything, I just needed time to. Time. Emma whirled around, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. You've had 8 years since you got clean. 8 years to come home, to tell the truth, to do literally anything except collect money from Grandma Dorothy while we struggled. Sarah reached for Emma's arm, but Jake stepped between them. At 20, he was already taller than me and had the kind of presence that came from dealing with emergencies. Don't touch her, he said quietly. Jake, please. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? Jake's laugh was harsh. Abandoning us was a mistake. Stealing from Dad was a mistake. Running identity theft scams on other families destroyed by addiction. That's not a mistake, Sarah. That's who you are. Sarah turned to me desperately. David, you have to help me fix this. Marcus wants 200,000, but if we can just get him to. We. The word came out colder than I intended. There is no we, Sarah. There hasn't been for 18 years. But the kid's inheritance. We'll be fine, Emma interrupted. We've decided to walk away from all of it. Grandma Dorothy's money, the reconciliation process, everything. We don't want anything that connects us to you or your problems. Sarah's face went white. You can't do that. If you walk away, I lose everything. The house, the inheritance, I'll have nothing left to pay Marcus. That's not our problem, Jake said. We didn't create this mess. I watched Sarah realize that her children, the ones she'd abandoned as toddlers, were now adults who could simply choose to walk away from her chaos. The power dynamic she'd been counting on, the guilt and obligation she'd expected to leverage, none of it existed. Emma and Jake owed her nothing. There's something else, I said, pulling out my phone to show Sarah the missed calls from Rebecca Chin. The IRS investigation into your unreported income. It's accelerated. They're issuing a warrant for your arrest next week. Sarah stared at the screen in horror. How do you know about that? Because unlike you, I prepare for consequences. I put my phone away. Emma, Jake, let's go home. As we walked toward the parking lot, Sarah's voice followed us, high and desperate. David, please. I know I don't deserve help, but think about what this publicity will do to Emma and Jake. Their futures, their reputations. I stopped walking but didn't turn around. You should have thought about their futures 18 years ago. The last thing I heard was Sarah sobbing in the empty hallway, finally understanding that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. The drive home was silent except for Emma's occasional sniffles from the passenger seat. Jake followed us in his truck, and I could see him in my rearview mirror, gripping the steering wheel with the kind of intensity he usually reserved for emergency calls. When we got to my house, Emma immediately collapsed onto the couch where she'd spent countless hours doing homework as a kid. Jake paced the living room like a caged animal, his EMT training warring with his need to protect his family. We need a plan, Jake said finally. Marcus isn't going away, and neither are Sarah's legal problems. Even if we walk away from the inheritance, he can still go to the press with his story. I'd been thinking the same thing. Rebecca's coming over in an hour. She's bringing someone from her firm who specializes in crisis management. Emma looked up from the couch. Crisis management? Dad, this isn't some corporate scandal. This is our lives. Which is exactly why we need professionals handling it, I said, sitting down next to her. Marcus isn't just blackmailing Sarah anymore. He's threatening all of us. My phone rang before Emma could respond. Unknown number, but I had a sinking feeling I knew who it was. Is this David Chin? The voice was unfamiliar, female, professional, with the kind of authority that meant trouble. Yes, who's this? Agent Patricia Malloy, IRS Criminal Investigation Division. I'm calling about Sarah Martinez and some financial records that mention your name. We need to schedule an interview. My stomach dropped. The federal investigation wasn't just about Sarah's unreported income anymore, they were looking into everyone connected to her financial history. Including me. What kind of interview? We have records showing regular deposits to your account from Dorothy Martinez's trust between 2019 and 2021. Small amounts, always just under the reporting threshold. We need to verify that you properly reported this income on your tax returns. The anonymous scholarship payments. The property tax reassessment. The mysterious grants that had helped cover Emma and Jake's expenses. Dorothy's secret financial support was now part of a federal investigation, and I was potentially in the crosshairs. I wasn't aware those payments were connected to Dorothy Martinez, I said carefully. They came from various organizations and grant foundations. Mr. Chen, we have documentation showing that Ms. Martinez used multiple shell companies to funnel money to your family over a 6-year period. Total amount approximately $47,000. If you didn't report this as income, we need to discuss voluntary compliance before this becomes a criminal matter. Emma was staring at me with wide eyes. Jake had stopped pacing and was listening intently to my side of the conversation. The children I'd sacrificed everything to protect were now watching their father potentially face federal charges for crimes he didn't know he was committing. I need to consult with my attorney before we schedule anything. Of course. But Mr. Chin. Don't wait too long. The investigation is moving quickly, and cooperation now will be viewed more favorably than cooperation later. She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone while Emma and Jake processed what they'd just heard. Dad, Emma said quietly, are you going to be arrested? Before I could answer, Jake's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it and his face went pale. Marcus just sent me Sarah's booking photo from Phoenix, he said, showing us the screen. Along with a message, 12 hours to decide. Pay up or this goes viral. The photo showed Sarah at her absolute lowest, hollow-eyed, gaunt, wearing an orange jumpsuit with a booking number across her chest. It was the image of everything Emma and Jake had been protected from their entire lives, now being used as ammunition against us. He's not waiting 48 hours anymore, Jake said grimly. He wants an answer by tomorrow morning, or he's releasing everything to the Portland Tribune. We were out of time, out of options, and running out of ways to protect the life we built together. Rebecca arrived 30 minutes early with a woman who introduced herself as Patricia Wong, a crisis communications specialist who looked like she'd stepped out of a corporate boardroom. They spread documents across my kitchen table while Emma made coffee with shaking hands and Jake continued his restless pacing. The situation is more complicated than we initially thought, Rebecca said, pulling out a thick folder. The IRS investigation isn't just about Sarah's unreported income. They're looking into Dorothy's entire financial network, all the shell companies, the anonymous payments, the trust structures. It appears Dorothy was operating what they're calling a sophisticated tax avoidance scheme. Patricia Wong looked up from her laptop. How sophisticated are we talking? Dorothy funneled approximately $2.3 million through various entities over the past decade. The payments to David's family, the monthly support to Sarah, even the kids' inheritance trusts, it's all potentially tainted money from a tax perspective. Emma set down her coffee mug with trembling hands. Are you saying Grandma Dorothy was a criminal? Not criminal, Rebecca clarified. But she was definitely playing in gray areas of tax law. The shell companies, the just underreporting threshold payments, the complex trust structures, it was all designed to move money around without triggering federal oversight. Jake stopped pacing and faced Rebecca directly. Bottom line, what does this mean for us? It means Emma and Jake's inheritance could be frozen indefinitely while the IRS untangles Dorothy's financial web. It means David could face charges for accepting unreported income, even though he didn't know the source. And it means Marcus has enough ammunition to destroy all of your reputations even if we pay him off. Patricia Wong pulled up something on her laptop screen. I've been monitoring social media and local news feeds. Marcus hasn't gone public yet, but he's been creating accounts and building an online presence. He's planning a coordinated media blitz, Facebook, Twitter, local news stations, even a blog he's setting up called The Truth About Sarah Martinez. My blood ran cold. He's not just threatening to release information. He's building a platform to destroy us systematically. Exactly. And once it's online, it's permanent. Emma's future employers will find it. Jake's fire department will see it. Every college application, every job interview, every relationship you build from here on out will be shadowed by this story. Emma buried her face in her hands. This is insane. We didn't do anything wrong. We were children when all this happened. That won't matter to the internet mob, Patricia said grimly. The story Marcus is planning to tell isn't about a woman who abandoned her children. It's about a family who got rich off fraud while other families suffered. He's positioned you as villains, not victims. Jake's phone buzzed again. This time when he read the message, his face went from pale to furious. He's not waiting until morning anymore. He wants $300,000 by 6 p.m. today, or he publishes everything at midnight. $300,000. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. The bastard raised his price. Rebecca checked her watch. It's 2:47 p.m. That gives us about 3 hours to either pay Marcus or find another way to stop him. We don't have $300,000, Emma said desperately. Even with Dad's trust from Grandma Dorothy, most of that is tied up in legal proceedings now. Patricia Wong was typing rapidly on her laptop. There might be another option. Marcus has been using his real name online, making threats across state lines, potentially committing extortion. If we can document his criminal behavior, we might be able to have him arrested before he can release anything. How long would that take? Jake asked. If we filed charges now? Maybe 6 hours for local police to pick him up. But that's assuming he's still in Oregon, assuming we can prove extortion, and assuming he doesn't have the information set to publish automatically if he's arrested. My phone rang again. Sarah's number. Don't answer it, Emma said quickly. But something told me I needed to hear what Sarah had to say. Against my better judgment, I picked up. David, Marcus just called me. Sarah's voice was frantic, barely coherent. He's not just threatening you and the kids anymore. He's threatening my parents' graves. He says he's going to vandalize their headstones, claim Dorothy was running money laundering operations through the cemetery trust fund. He's completely lost his mind. Even I had limits, and desecrating Dorothy's grave crossed every line that mattered. Where is he, Sarah? The Marriott downtown. Room 847. David, he's got boxes of documents, hard drives, printed photos. This isn't just about money anymore, he wants to destroy everything Dorothy built, everyone she tried to help. I looked at Rebecca, at Patricia, at Emma, and Jake's terrified faces. We're not paying him, I said into the phone. And we're not running from him either. It was time to end this once and for all. I hung up on Sarah and turned to face the room. We're going to the Marriott. All of us. David, that's not, Rebecca started, but I cut her off. Marcus wants a war. He's got one. But we're fighting it on our terms. Jake was already grabbing his keys. What's the plan, Dad? The plan is we walk in there with everything we've got and show Marcus exactly who he's been messing with. Patricia Wong looked horrified. That's absolutely not how crisis management works. You never confront the blackmailer directly. Marcus made one critical mistake, I said, pulling on my jacket. He threatened Dorothy's grave. That makes this personal for all four of us, and Emma and Jake have been waiting 18 years to protect this family. The drive downtown took 12 minutes. Rebecca and Patricia followed us in Rebecca's car, both probably calling their malpractice insurance carriers. Jake rode with me, Emma in the passenger seat, all of us silent but determined. At the Marriott, we didn't bother with the front desk. Jake had learned a few things about getting into places during his EMT training, and hotel key card locks weren't exactly high security. We took the elevator to the 8th floor. Room 847's door was propped open with a security latch. We could hear Marcus inside, talking loudly on a phone call. Yeah, the story goes live at midnight regardless. I've got it scheduled to post automatically on 6 different platforms. Even if something happens to me, the whole thing becomes public. I knocked on the door frame. Marcus? We need to talk. The phone call ended abruptly. Marcus appeared in the doorway, mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of artificially confident smile that screamed, used car salesman. He looked exactly like the type of person who'd blackmail grieving families. David. And the famous kids. Come in, come in. Though I have to say, you're cutting it close. 4 hours until showtime. The hotel room was a disaster zone of printed documents, computer equipment, and what looked like a mobile broadcasting setup. Marcus had been planning this media blitz for weeks. Here's what's going to happen, I said, not bothering to sit down. You're going to delete everything you have about Sarah, about Dorothy, about my family. And then you're going to disappear. Marcus laughed. Or what? You'll beat me up. Call the police. I haven't done anything illegal, David. Telling the truth isn't a crime. Extortion is, though. Jake stepped forward, holding up his phone with a recording app running. And you just admitted on camera that you're blackmailing us for money. That recording won't hold up in court without. Emma moved to Marcus's laptop and started typing. Actually, Marcus, you made another mistake. You used your real email address to set up these social media accounts. The same email you used to send threatening messages to my brother. Marcus lunged for the laptop, but Patricia Wong was faster. She'd apparently decided that crisis management sometimes required direct action. Everything's backed up to cloud storage now. Including the automated posts you were planning to release. You can't do that. That's my private information. Rebecca appeared in the doorway with 2 Portland police officers. Actually, Marcus, it becomes evidence the moment you use it to commit extortion. Officers, this is the man who's been making threats across state lines. The next 30 minutes were a blur of handcuffs, Miranda rights, and hotel security clearing out boxes of evidence. Marcus kept shouting about lawsuits and press freedom right up until the elevator doors closed on him. Is it over? Emma asked, sinking into the hotel room's desk chair. Not quite, Rebecca said, checking her phone. But Marcus's arrest means the IRS will probably treat David as a cooperative witness rather than a target. And without Marcus pushing the story, Sarah's legal problems stay between her and the federal government. Jake looked out the hotel window toward downtown Portland. What happens to Sarah? She'll probably serve some time for tax evasion, I said. But that's her consequence to face, not ours to fix. Emma stood up and looked around the hotel room one last time. Dad? Can we go home now? Yeah, Em. We can go home. As we waited for the elevator, I thought about Dorothy's will, about second chances and family reconciliation. Maybe she'd gotten it wrong about Sarah, but she'd been right about one thing, Emma and Jake had grown into exactly the kind of people worth fighting for. The elevator arrived, and we stepped inside together, the family we'd chosen to be, rather than the one biology had tried to force on us. Payback, it turned out, wasn't about revenge or money or making Sarah suffer for 18 years of abandonment. It was about finally being free to live our lives without looking over our shoulders, knowing that the people who mattered most were standing right beside us. The doors closed, and we went home.